So, let's talk about one of the most incredible, almost unbelievable stories of the 20th century. It's the story of a soldier who, quite simply, refused to believe the war was over.
Okay, picture this. The year is 1974, March to be exact. World War II has been over for nearly 30 years. The world had completely moved on. Nations were rebuilt, new cities had sprung up, an entire generation had been born and raised in peacetime.
Because deep in the thick, remote jungles of Lubang Island in the Philippines, a Japanese intelligence officer was still fighting his war. For him, the calendar was still stuck on 1944. His name was Hiro Onoda, and when he finally came out of that jungle, his uniform was in tatters, but his Arasaka rifle, it was perfectly maintained, practically gleaming after decades of constant care. He was, in every sense, the last soldier, fighting a ghost war against an enemy that had packed up and gone home 30 years earlier.
To really get your head around how this could even happen, you've got to go back in time. Back to the Japan of the 1940s, a hyper-militaristic society where the bond between a soldier and his duty, well, it was absolute.
And this wasn't just some line in a military handbook. It was a deeply, deeply ingrained part of the culture. The very concept of surrender was basically erased from their vocabulary. For soldiers like Onoda, it was drilled into them from childhood. Death is always better than capture. This one single belief, it's the key to this entire story.
Now, it's also really important to know that Onoda wasn't just some average foot soldier. No, he was handpicked for the elite Nakano military school. His training wasn't about big frontline battles. It was about intelligence, sabotage, and exactly how to survive and fight a long-term guerrilla war all alone deep behind enemy lines.
And right here, this is it. This is the single command that locked his fate in place. In 1944, right before he was sent to Lubang, his commanding officer, Major Taniguchi, gave him this direct, explicit order. It wasn't just, "Don't surrender." It was, "You are forbidden to even take your own life. Wait, we will come back for you." These words became his entire reality for the next 30 years.
So his mission on Lubang Island was pretty straightforward. Cause chaos, disrupt enemy supply lines, and just hold the island until the Imperial Army came back for him. And that is exactly what he did, even long after the entire world had declared peace.
So, August 1945, the war is officially over. The Allies drop millions of leaflets all over the island saying Japan surrendered. But Onoda's elite training had actually prepared him for exactly this. In his mind, the enemy was clever. They would use tricks, they'd use misinformation to get him to give up. So to him, these leaflets, they were just a clever enemy plot. His war kept going.
And you can just see the enormous stretch of time here. He wasn't by himself at first, he had 3 other soldiers with him. But as the years just melted into decades, his little unit got smaller and smaller. One of them surrendered, another was killed in a shootout, and then, in 1972, his very last companion was killed. And just like that, he was completely, utterly alone.
The fact that he survived is a testament to his training. He was living off the land, bananas, coconuts, whatever he could find. He'd even steal rice from local farms. When things got really desperate, they would hunt cattle and dry the meat so it would last. But listen, this wasn't just about survival. He was still on his mission. He saw the local police and farmers as enemy collaborators, and he would launch guerrilla attacks against them. And we can't forget, his war had a very real and very tragic cost. Over those 29 years, it's estimated that Hiro Onoda and his men killed more than 30 local Filipinos and wounded over 100 more, all for a war that existed only in his mind. The Japanese government tried everything to get him out. They dropped newspapers, photos, letters from his family. They even had his own brother broadcast a message over a loudspeaker. Onoda heard it all and dismissed every last bit of it as an elaborate trick. His final surrender was going to take something far, far more unlikely. Okay, this part is just wild. After countless failed searches by police and military, the guy who finally finds Onoda isn't a soldier at all. He's a 24-year-old college dropout and adventurer named Norio Suzuki. And Suzuki had this amazing to-do list for his life. Find Onoda, find a panda, and find the abominable snowman, in that order. And in February 1974, after just 4 days in the jungle, he did it. He found him.
So Suzuki tries to explain to Onoda that the war is over, that Japan is this peaceful, prosperous country now. But Onoda's mind was just locked. He said he would only surrender, would only believe it was real, if the man who gave him the original order came to the island and took it back. in person.
So the Japanese government had to track down Major Taniguchi. He wasn't in the army anymore. He was an old man, working quietly in a bookstore. They flew him to Lubang Island, and when Onoda saw his old commander, he instantly snapped to attention and saluted. Taniguchi then read the formal order, relieving him of his duty. And just like that, the 30-year war was finally over.
And right here, this is the true cost. He got to that island as a young man of 22. He left it at age 52. He gave his entire youth, his friendships, the prime of his life, all for an order, for a sense of duty that the rest of the world had left behind decades ago. So what happens when a man who's been frozen in time is suddenly thrown back into the modern world? Well, Onoda's final chapter was maybe just as complicated as his time in the jungle.
He went back to Japan and was treated like a national hero. But the Japan he came back to, it wasn't the one he remembered. It was a world of skyscrapers, of Western culture. He just couldn't adjust. A year later, he moved to Brazil and became a cattle rancher. But years later, in 1996, he did go back to Lubang Island. He actually donated $10,000 to a local school there, kind of a gesture of peace for the pain he'd caused. He eventually passed away in 2014 at the age of 91.
And that really leaves us with the big, lingering question of his life. Was Hiro Onoda the ultimate symbol of loyalty and duty, a soldier who carried out his mission perfectly against all odds? Or was his just a tragic story of a life that was stolen by a fanatical ideology and a forgotten order? It's a question that's just as complex and haunting as the man himself.